Dad kicked me out for refusing to marry stepmom's nephew. Now I own his company. I'm still shaking as I write this. My family has completely fallen apart over the past few weeks and I need to get this off my chest. The whole situation feels like a bad dream, but I know I need to face reality and figure out what to do next. For context, I, 28 female, have been working at my dad's tech startup since I graduated college 6 years ago. The company develops security software for major corporations and government contractors. We started with just 5 people working out of a small office, but now we have over 100 employees and contracts worth millions. I started as an entry-level developer right after getting my engineering degree. A lot of people thought I only got the job because of nepotism, but I worked twice as hard to prove them wrong. Over the years, I worked my way up to lead our biggest projects and built strong relationships with our most important clients. My dad always told me the company would be mine someday. He started training me in every aspect of the business from day one, from development to client relations to financial planning. I sacrificed a lot for this company. I turned down better paying jobs at big tech firms, worked 80-hour weeks during crunch times, and even delayed starting a family of my own because I was so focused on our growth. Some background on my family situation: my mom passed away when I was 16 after a long battle with cancer. It was just my dad and me for several years, which made us extremely close. He remarried Audrey 3 years ago. She seemed nice enough at first, though we were never particularly close. Audrey has this nephew Dylan, 23 male, who just graduated with a computer science degree. For the past year, she's been constantly talking about how talented Dylan is and how he could bring fresh perspectives to our work. She kept pushing my dad to give him a position at the company once he graduated. I didn't object to hiring Dylan initially. We were expanding rapidly and could always use more developers. But I did notice Audrey was weirdly insistent about getting him involved in my projects specifically. She would always arrange for him to sit with me at family gatherings and try to push us into conversations about work. Looking back, I should have seen what was coming. The drama started last month when my dad called what he said was an important family meeting. He sat me down with Audrey and Dylan in his home office, the same office where he used to help me with my homework and where we planned the start of our company. The moment I walked in, something felt off. Audrey had this weird smile on her face and Dylan looked like he wanted to disappear into his chair. My dad started talking about succession planning and the future of the company. I thought he was finally going to officially announce me taking over as CEO in the next few years. Instead, he dropped a bombshell: they wanted Dylan and me to get married. Audrey had apparently convinced my dad it would be the perfect solution. Dylan could learn the business while I continued running things, and our marriage would ensure everything stayed in the family. I was completely blindsided. Dylan and I had only met a handful of times at family gatherings. Our interactions never went beyond basic small talk. I had actually heard rumors he was dating someone but hadn't paid much attention to his personal life. The whole idea felt like something out of a bad Victorian novel, arranging marriages to merge family interests. I immediately refused and told them this was insane. Dylan just sat there looking uncomfortable but didn't say anything, not that I really expected him to stand up to his aunt. Audrey started crying and saying I was being selfish, that Dylan was perfect for me and the company. She went on about how we were both smart and driven and could build something amazing together. When I pointed out that Dylan and I barely knew each other, she said love could grow over time and we should think about what was best for both families. My dad's reaction was what really shocked me. He got angry in a way I'd never seen before. He said either I agreed to the arrangement or I would no longer be welcome at the company or considered his heir. It was like a stranger had possessed him. This wasn't the loving father who had raised me and built this company with me. When I still refused, he told me to clean out my desk and leave. Just like that, 6 years of hard work and dedication meant nothing. The next day when I went to get my things, my access cards were already deactivated. Security escorted me out like a criminal while Audrey watched from my dad's office with this satisfied look on her face. I later found out she had already started telling people I was taking a leave of absence for personal reasons. The fallout has been devastating. Several of my team members have reached out saying Dylan is completely unqualified to lead my projects. He's making amateur mistakes that could cost us major clients. My lead developer said Dylan didn't even understand the basic architecture of our security systems. My dad won't listen to anyone's concerns because Audrey keeps defending Dylan and saying he just needs time to adjust. I've been staying with my best friend Amy while looking for a new job. She's been amazing through all this, but I feel like such a burden. My dad's behavior has shocked our extended family. His sister, my aunt, has been especially supportive and says he's acting irrationally under Audrey's influence. She thinks Audrey has been manipulating him for a while now, isolating him from family and friends who might question her decisions. Audrey's family, except for Dylan's parents, thinks I'm being dramatic and should just give Dylan a chance since he's such a nice guy. They keep saying I'm throwing away a great opportunity out of pride. None of them seem to understand or care that I'm being forced out of a company I helped build from the ground up. I feel like my whole world has been turned upside down. The company was my life for 6 years and now I've lost both it and my relationship with my dad over this insane demand. Every morning I wake up hoping it was just a bad dream, but then reality hits again. I know I made the right choice refusing. I could never marry someone just to please my family or secure a business. But knowing I'm right doesn't make it hurt any less. I could really use some outside perspective on this situation. Am I crazy for refusing to even consider their proposal? Should I have at least pretended to think about it to buy myself time? How do I move forward when everything I've worked for has been taken away? My head is spinning with questions and I just don't know what to do next. Update 1. It's been about 3 weeks since my original post and I need to get some things off my chest. A lot has happened, and unfortunately none of it is good. Thank you to everyone who offered support and advice. I never expected my post to get so much attention, but reading your comments helped me feel less alone in this nightmare. The situation at the company has gone from bad to worse. Last week, Secure Systems, one of our biggest clients, name changed for privacy, terminated their $5 million contract with us. They cited serious concerns about project management and data security in their termination letter. I found out through former colleagues that Dylan had made some critical security oversights in their system architecture. He apparently ignored basic security protocols that I had personally implemented and documented. This put their sensitive data at risk and could have exposed them to massive liability. Instead of admitting Dylan wasn't ready for this role, my dad and Audrey tried to blame me for sabotaging the handover. Audrey has been telling everyone that I deliberately left out critical information during the transition to make Dylan look bad. This is completely false. I kept detailed documentation of all my projects and processes. The truth is, Dylan didn't even bother to read most of it before making changes to the systems. My former lead developer Mike reached out to tell me that 3 other major clients are now reviewing their contracts. The team is trying their best to hold things together, but Dylan keeps making unilateral decisions without consulting anyone. He shot down their concerns about his changes, saying he had fresh ideas that would modernize our systems. Mike said Dylan actually told him we don't need to be so paranoid about security these days. This from someone who's supposed to be leading a security software company. The situation got even worse when Dylan's own parents contacted me. They were horrified to learn about the marriage scheme and revealed some shocking information. Apparently, Audrey had been pushing this idea for over a year, telling everyone in the family that Dylan and I were secretly interested in each other. She would deliberately engineer situations where we'd be seated together at family events, then take photos and show them around as proof of our chemistry. She even started rumors that we were meeting privately outside family gatherings. Dylan's parents confronted Audrey about this at a family dinner last weekend. They had screenshots of texts where Audrey discussed her plans to get Dylan and me together. She had been telling Dylan that I had hinted at being interested in him, while telling me, through my dad, that Dylan had expressed interest in me. When confronted, Audrey broke down and admitted she wanted Dylan to take over the company because his family had fallen on hard times. His parents lost their small business during the pandemic, and Audrey saw arranging his marriage to me as a way to secure both our futures. My dad was apparently devastated to learn he'd been manipulated, but still wouldn't apologize to me. He called my aunt, his sister, and said he felt torn between his loyalty to me and his commitment to Audrey. He actually said I should have been willing to at least consider the arrangement for the good of both families. My aunt told him he was being ridiculous and that he'd lost his mind if he thought forced marriage was an acceptable business strategy in 2024. What really infuriates me is what Audrey has been doing to my professional reputation. She's been spreading rumors in our industry that I'm emotionally unstable and had to be removed from the company. She's telling people I had an inappropriate obsession with Dylan and became hostile when he turned me down. Several former colleagues forwarded me emails where she claimed I had personal issues that made me unfit to lead projects. She's even suggesting I might have intentionally compromised client security before leaving. These lies could seriously damage my career prospects. I've had to reach out to former colleagues, clients, and industry contacts to explain my side before Audrey's version spreads further. Thankfully, most people who've actually worked with me know her claims are ridiculous. My track record speaks for itself. But it's exhausting having to defend myself against these accusations while also trying to rebuild my career. I've started looking into legal options. While I don't have an official ownership stake in the company, I contributed significantly to developing our core software. Many of our security protocols and systems were my original work. I'm consulting with a lawyer about intellectual property rights and potential compensation for my contributions. Dylan's parents are actually supporting me in this because they're so disgusted by Audrey's behavior. They've offered to help with legal fees and provide evidence of her manipulation. The hardest part has been seeing my former team members struggle. 3 senior developers have already quit because they refuse to work under Dylan's inexperienced leadership. 2 more are actively job hunting. But many others are stuck there due to contracts or financial obligations. Mike told me morale is at an all-time low. People are afraid to raise concerns because Audrey has convinced my dad that any criticism of Dylan is just jealousy or disloyalty. I feel guilty that my departure has impacted so many people, but I know this isn't my fault. I couldn't have stayed and married Dylan just to keep the company stable. That would have been wrong on so many levels. Still, I worry about the dedicated employees who helped build this company and now have to watch it potentially fall apart. Amy continues to be my rock through all this. She's helping me network for new opportunities and letting me stay with her as long as I need. She even called out Audrey on social media when she tried to spread her lies there. Other friends have also stepped up to offer support and job leads. It's shown me who my real family is. I'm focusing on moving forward, but it's difficult knowing my relationship with my dad may be permanently damaged over Audrey's scheming. He still hasn't reached out directly to me. Everything I hear about him comes through my aunt or other family members. Part of me hopes he'll eventually see through Audrey's manipulation and apologize, but another part wonders if our relationship can ever recover from this betrayal. I've started preliminary discussions with some potential investors about starting my own security consulting firm. It's still in the early stages, but having a goal to work toward helps keep me going. I know I have the skills and experience to succeed on my own. Maybe losing my position at my dad's company will turn out to be a blessing in disguise. At least then I won't have to worry about family drama affecting my professional life anymore. Update 2. 2 months have passed since my last update, and the situation has exploded in ways I never could have predicted. The truth about why Audrey was so desperate to arrange this marriage has finally come out, and it's much worse than anyone imagined. Last week, one of my former coworkers, let's call her Rachel, contacted me with some shocking information. Rachel works in our finance department and had noticed some irregularities in the company accounts over the past few years. She started digging deeper after my forced departure and discovered that Audrey had been embezzling money from the company to help Dylan's family with their financial troubles. We're not talking about small amounts. She had stolen nearly $2 million through a sophisticated scheme of fake vendor accounts and inflated invoices. This revelation explains everything. Audrey wasn't just trying to secure Dylan's future with the marriage arrangement. She needed someone she could control in charge of the company's finances before anyone discovered the missing funds. She knew I would have eventually found the discrepancies once I took over as CEO. By putting Dylan in power instead, she could continue covering her tracks. Dylan apparently had no idea about the embezzlement. Rachel said he was just following his aunt's directions because she had helped his family so much after they lost their business. Audrey had convinced him that working with her was the only way to save his parents from bankruptcy. She used their financial vulnerability to manipulate everyone. The company is in serious trouble now. 4 more major clients have pulled their contracts, citing concerns about mismanagement and data security. Our biggest government contract is under review. My aunt, who's friends with one of the board members, says there's serious talk of forcing my dad to step down as CEO. The board is worried about potential financial fraud and how my dad missed such obvious red flags. They're bringing in external auditors to review everything. Audrey has gone into full panic mode. She's been calling everyone in the family, trying to spin this as a misunderstanding. She even had the nerve to call Amy's house at 3 a.m., begging to speak with me. She suggested I could still marry Dylan and we could sort everything out quietly within the family. She said we could blame the missing money on accounting errors and move forward together. I recorded the whole conversation on Amy's advice. The most satisfying development came through my lawyer. While reviewing company records for my intellectual property case, he found clear evidence linking Audrey to the embezzlement. She had been sloppy in covering her tracks, probably assuming no one would look too closely as long as she controlled the company's leadership. We've turned all this information over to the proper authorities. Dylan's parents are devastated. They had no idea Audrey was stealing to help them. They thought she was using her own money and feel horrible about unknowingly benefiting from stolen funds. They've already spoken to authorities and are cooperating fully. They're also insisting on selling their house to repay whatever they can, even though they weren't legally responsible for Audrey's actions. My dad still hasn't reached out to me directly, but my aunt says he's a shell of himself. The board has restricted his authority pending their investigation. Audrey's spending patterns raised red flags that he should have noticed years ago. His blind trust in her may end up costing him the company he spent decades building. My aunt says he spends most days just sitting in his home office, staring at old photos from when it was just him and me running things. The most frustrating part is watching Audrey try to weasel her way out of this. She's now claiming she only borrowed the money temporarily and always intended to pay it back. She's trying to paint herself as a loving aunt who just wanted to help her family through hard times. She's even suggesting that my refusal to marry Dylan somehow forced her to take desperate measures to protect everyone's interests. Some of our relatives are actually buying her excuses. They're saying we should handle this privately instead of involving authorities. They think pressing charges would just hurt the family more. These are the same people who thought I should have agreed to an arranged marriage for the good of the family. Their moral compass is completely broken. My lawyer says we have a solid case against Audrey and potentially the company itself. The intellectual property issues are separate from the embezzlement, but both show a pattern of mismanagement that strengthens my position. Several former employees have offered to testify about how the company changed after Audrey came into the picture. I'm trying to stay focused on building my future instead of watching my dad's company implode. I've secured office space for my new consulting firm and have verbal commitments from several experienced developers. 2 major clients who left my dad's company have already reached out about working with me once I'm set up. It's bittersweet success. I never wanted to build my business on my father's failures, but I have to look out for myself now. Update 3. It's been 6 months since this nightmare began, and everything has finally come crashing down. The fallout has been massive, and I'm still processing how quickly everything unraveled. Audrey was arrested last week for embezzlement and fraud. The investigation revealed she had stolen close to $2.4 million through various schemes, even more than initially suspected. She had created a complex web of fake vendors and consulting contracts to funnel money out of the company. The prosecutors say she kept detailed records of everything on her personal laptop, which they seized during the arrest. She apparently thought these records would protect her if Dylan ever took control and discovered the missing funds. She could claim it was all authorized business expenses. The arrest happened at my dad's house, right in the middle of a family dinner they were hosting. My aunt was there and told me everything. Audrey apparently tried to run when she saw the police cars pulling up. She made it as far as the neighbor's yard before they caught her. She was screaming about how she did everything for her family and how ungrateful everyone was. My dad just stood in the doorway, watching in shock as they took his wife away in handcuffs. Dylan finally grew a backbone and gave a full statement to investigators. He admitted Audrey had been pressuring him about the marriage scheme for months. She told him that marrying me was the only way to guarantee his parents would be taken care of financially. When I refused, she became desperate and started making bigger mistakes with the company funds. Dylan's cooperating fully with the investigation and won't face charges, but his reputation in the industry is completely destroyed. No tech company will touch him now. He's been working as a bartender to make ends meet. The board forced my dad to resign as CEO last month. The external audit revealed such extensive financial mismanagement that they had no choice. They've brought in a crisis management team to try salvaging what's left of the company. 3 board members also resigned, saying they should have noticed the warning signs sooner. The company's stock has tanked, and there's talk of a potential buyout by one of our competitors. My dad finally broke down and called me. It was a difficult conversation. He admitted that letting Audrey manipulate him was the biggest mistake of his life. He said he got so caught up in the idea of keeping the business in the family that he lost sight of what family really meant. He betrayed me, his only daughter, for a woman who was stealing from him the entire time. He broke down crying when he talked about all the years we spent building the company together and how he threw it all away. I didn't offer him forgiveness during that call. The hurt is still too raw. I told him I needed time and space to process everything. He seemed to understand but mentioned that he's in therapy now, trying to understand how he let things get so out of control. It's a start, I suppose, but it doesn't undo the damage. The most ironic part of all this is that the company's implosion has actually helped my new venture take off. I've started my own consulting firm with 2 of my former senior developers. We're operating out of a small office space, but we've already landed 3 major clients, including 2 that left my dad's company during the crisis. Our reputation for solid security work and ethical business practices is attracting a lot of interest. Audrey's family has completely disowned her, especially Dylan's parents. They're mortified about the whole situation and have been trying to make amends with everyone affected by her schemes. They sent me a long letter apologizing for not seeing through their sister's manipulation sooner. They've also been working with investigators to help trace all the stolen funds. My aunt suggested I should write a formal impact statement for Audrey's sentencing hearing. She thinks it would help me get closure to tell the court how Audrey's actions affected my life and career. I'm considering it, but part of me just wants to move forward and leave all this in the past. My lawyer says Audrey will likely serve serious time regardless of whether I testify. The evidence against her is overwhelming. For now, I'm focusing on growing my business and rebuilding my life. The whole experience has taught me valuable lessons about trust and family. Success built on manipulation and lies will always collapse eventually. I'm building my company on a foundation of honest work and transparency, no family drama or hidden agendas allowed. Update 4. Nearly a year has passed since this saga began, and I think this will be my final update. I want to thank everyone who followed my story and offered support through this nightmare. The situation has finally reached its conclusion, though not in a way anyone could have predicted. My consulting firm has grown beyond my wildest expectations. We just landed a major government contract worth $7 million, ironically, the same contract my dad's company lost during the crisis. We've expanded from 3 people to a team of 15, including several talented developers who left my dad's company during the upheaval. We even had to move to a larger office space last month to accommodate our growth. The irony isn't lost on me that losing my position at my dad's company pushed me to create something even better on my own. Audrey's trial ended last week. She pleaded guilty to multiple counts of embezzlement and fraud to get a slightly reduced sentence. She'll serve 7 years in prison and has to pay substantial restitution. During her sentencing, she tried to play the devoted aunt card one last time, claiming everything she did was to help her family. The judge wasn't moved, especially after seeing evidence that she had spent a large portion of the stolen money on luxury items for herself. My dad's company was ultimately sold to a competitor for a fraction of its former value. Most of the remaining employees were laid off, though some were absorbed into the new organization. My dad lost almost everything in the aftermath: his company, his reputation, and most of his savings after paying back investors and settling lawsuits. He's selling the house now because he can't afford the mortgage payments. The divorce from Audrey is still ongoing, complicated by her conviction and the company's collapse. Dylan moved to Seattle and is working at a small IT support company. His parents reached out to let me know he's in therapy and trying to rebuild his life away from his aunt's influence. They've managed to repay about half of what Audrey stole to help them, selling their house and most of their assets to do so. I appreciate their efforts to make things right, but we'll never have a relationship again. My dad sends me emails every few weeks asking to meet and make amends. His latest message included a long apology and an admission that his pride and stubborn trust in Audrey destroyed everything we built together. He said watching me succeed with my own company while his legacy crumbled has been a harsh but deserved lesson. Part of me wants to give him a chance. He is still my dad, after all. But I can't forget how quickly he chose Audrey's schemes over our relationship and threatened my entire career to force me into a marriage I didn't want. Some extended family members think I'm being too harsh by maintaining distance from my dad. They say he's suffered enough and family should stick together. But these are the same relatives who thought I should have just gone along with the arranged marriage to keep peace in the family. Their opinion stopped mattering to me a long time ago. For now, I'm focusing on growing my company and maintaining the wonderful relationships I've built with my team. Amy is now my head of operations. Turns out she has an amazing talent for business management. The family I've built through friendship and professional relationships has proven far more reliable than the one I was born into. I don't know if I'll ever fully reconcile with my dad. Maybe someday, when the pain isn't so fresh. But I've learned that sharing DNA doesn't obligate you to accept betrayal or manipulation. Sometimes the healthiest thing you can do is walk away and build something better on your own terms.